Street in Montreal. We have roughly 25,000 people travel up and down Spring Garden Road every single day. So as you can imagine, I'm sure we're headed for some lovely, lovely traffic. We're going to see a lot of people here. A lot of people are going to be waving. They're going to be yelling. We're going to have a good time coming down through here, guys. Now, when Spring Garden Road was originally built, it was actually more of a residential area. Now, unfortunately, today there's only one residential property still left on Spring Garden Road. We'll be coming up to that in a little minute here, guys. I'll be sure to point it out for you. And yes, in case you're wondering, it is for lease. So in case you want to own a little bit of Halifax history or rent to own, it might be a worthwhile investment, guys. As we look back over here on the right, we're getting ready to pass the entrance of our Halifax Public Gardens. Now, Halifax is a very thrifty city. We like to reduce, we like to reuse, we like to recycle. Now, these gates here at the very front, these beautiful, beautiful wrought iron gates right here, these are actually recycled from a former public garden that was all the way over in Scotland in the UK. Now, this public garden, unfortunately, was not very public at all. They did charge an admission fee, so unfortunately, their public gardens closed up shop very quickly. They ran a very, very large debt. So we swooped in, we said, you know what? We like Frenchies, we like Value Village, we'll swoop in, we'll pick up these gates, bring them back here, you know. We gotta keep our ducks, our geese, and our teenagers taking their prom pictures. We gotta keep all those folks here on the inside. Right now we're in the heart of Spring Garden Road, guys, or as I like to call it, patio country. We have your father's mustache directly behind us. We got Pete's Delight, we've got the Fickle Frog. So in case anybody's feeling a little parched, a little bit hungry afterwards, guys, I would highly recommend taking a swing up and down Spring Garden Road here. Find the patio to your liking. Whoa, yeah! What's the score? Did they win? All right. And we're naming our prize. Now back over here. Nobody on board is Chilean, right? Otherwise we might have a riot. Back over here on the left-hand side, guys, we're getting ready to pass by Jennifer's of Nova Scotia. Jennifer's of Nova Scotia is 100% locally owned and operated by local Nova Scotian artists. Everything that they sell inside has been made by local Nova Scotian artists, made of local Nova Scotian materials. That purple house right there that we just passed by, guys, that was the last residential house still left on Spring Garden Road. As I mentioned, it is for rent, so you could own a piece of Halifax history. Anybody on board a hockey fan? Any Sidney? Oh, we got one guy. Are you a Sidney Crosby fan?
No.
No? Alright, good on you. No, I'm teasing. Right here on Spring Garden Road. Spring Garden Road features Duggar's Menswear. Duggar's Menswear coming up here on the right-hand side. This is actually where Sidney Crosby buys all of his suits, both his home and away suits. And back here as well, over on the right, guys, we are passing by a building recently named by CNN as one of the top 10 most architecturally inspiring buildings in all of North America. That is our new Halifax Public Library. If you look closely, you'll notice it's shaped like a stack of books. We don't know when it's going to open, though, folks, as people continue to keep checking out the book. Haha, this guy got it. Right over here, folks, this is our old Halifax Public Library. Now, standing guard outside of that old public library is Sir Winston Churchill. Now, that statue of Sir Winston Churchill was actually modeled after a photograph taken of him as he strolled through our city streets back in 1944 and left us with one of my favorite quotes about Halifax. All of you folks visiting from away, you can take it home, you can tell it to your friends, your family, your co-workers, and it goes like this. I can now safely return home and say that Halifax is more than just a shed on the end of a dock. So you guys can bring that home and tell it to all your friends, family, and co-workers. Now back here over on the left-hand side, guys, this is St. Mary's Basilica. St. Mary's Basilica is over 200 years old. Now if you try to look all the way up to the very, 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 very top, it's all the way up there, and that is the second tallest polished granite steeple spire in all of North America. Now twice a year, some unfortunate soul does have to climb all the way up to the very top there to polish it up. In case you're wondering, yes, they are looking for volunteers, and no, you will not find me up there. Now back here on the right-hand side, guys, we are passing by the old burial grounds. Now the old burial grounds was the first cemetery built here in Halifax. It has over 1,200 headstones within, with over 12,000 bodies buried within there. Many of them, unfortunately, have been buried in mass graves, so it is a bit of a spooky graveyard to take a spin through, especially late at night. Now, one notable Canadian celebrity buried inside is Sir General Robert Ross. And I have a bit of a story about Robert Ross. I'm going to preface it by apologizing to all of my American viewers here today. It is a bit of a touchy subject. Now, Sir General Robert Ross led an attack on the presidential palace in the United States during the War of 1812. He attempted to burn the presidential palace to the ground, actually. Now, unfortunately for him, the palace was built out of limestone, which is inflammable material. So as much as he tried and tried and tried, all he was able to do was to char the side of the building a sooty black. So the caretaker at the time of the White House had to come in and he had to clean that up. So he thought long and he thought hard about what he was actually going to do to it. So what he wound up doing, he whitewashed the entire building there to get rid of all of that chard, which gives us, as we know today, as the White House. So you're welcome, Americans. You're welcome. Now, Sir General Robert Ross, he did pass away during the Battle of Baltimore in 1815. Now, his men, knowing him to be a true Canadian patriot, decided to bring him back here to town to bury him as a true Canadian patriot. Should be buried on Canadian soil. Now, during the war, unfortunately, there was no easy access to embalming fluid, so they did the next best thing that they could think of. They stuck him in a cask of Jamaican rum and brought him all the way back here to town. Now, upon his burial, many of his men decided to toast Sir General Robert Ross and actually had a drink of that same Jamaican rum that they brought him back in. Many of them went on to declare it the most full-bodied rum they'd ever tasted. Alright guys, we're getting ready here to make the turn at some point. See, this is why I miss those 50 cal machine guns. We just sit there, just point at them, everybody, no, alright, you're good, come on out, make the turn. Alright guys, we're back on a Lower Water Street here. If we look back over on the left-hand side of the boat, all the way up that hill there, we see that brick building there with the green roof. That's Keith's, oh, there we go, a little jumpy there. That's Keith's Manor, where Alexander Keith, three-time mayor of Halifax and award-winning brewmaster, lived during his time here in town. It's said that there are 3 tunnels coming out of the basement of that building, leading all the way down here to this historical property, where Keith's Brewery still exists today. Now, you can take a spin through Keith's Brewery every half hour for a tour. You can see how they brew his beer today, still following the same recipe. You can see it from the hops, the barley, down to the fermentation process. Now, I've also heard that at the end of the tour, if you ask very nicely and politely, they will give you a free sample or 2. So not a bad deal, you know? Traffic on a Saturday. Go figure. You guys from Toronto, this is probably nothing though for you. Only 1 lane of traffic compared to 4. You guys are like, you East Coasters don't know how good you have it. Coming up here back on the right-hand side of the boat, guys, we are getting ready to pass by that big parade building there. That is the tugboat warehouse. Now, back in the day, this was actually originally a warehouse designed for the creation or repair of tugboats. So before we had our lovely saltwater boardwalk, you drive your tugboat right up inside, or they just simply drive your brand new tugboat right out. It is now currently a restaurant here right along the waterfront. They have a very, very nice patio for you guys. It's not a bad spot to check in and check out. Over here on the right-hand side, guys, we're getting ready to pass by 1601 Lower Water Street, otherwise known as Summit Place. Now I'm going to pull a little bit of a television trick here, folks. I do have a very, very funny story about Summit Place. However, in a TV trick, we're going to have to hold on until after the commercial break to hear it. I'm going to save that for the very, very end of the tour. Make sure all you folks are on the edge of your seats waiting for it. It's got to be a good one, I promise. As well, guys, back over here on the right-hand side, if you look right down this little pathway here, you can actually see the Halifax Wave. That's a nice little tourist spot, guys. You can climb all the way up the side of the wave up to the very top, get a nice little picture on the boardwalk, and then slide all the way down the back side of it, too. It's pretty fun. It takes a little bit of lower body strength, though, to get all the way up that hill, though, guys, so you have been warned. Now we're passing by the Maritime Museum of the Atlantic. Now folks, the Maritime Museum of the Atlantic has roughly 6 to 7 exhibits that we roll through each and every year. My favorite one is the Theodore the Tugboat exhibit. However, there is one exhibit that is there year-round, and it is the largest collection of authentic Titanic artifacts in all of the world. Now Halifax was one of the first responding cities to the sinking of the Titanic. Now unfortunately, our efforts quickly turned from a rescue mission to more of a salvage mission, so we were able to pull many artifacts directly out of the water, and those that were unable to be identified or reunited with their original owners have been placed on permanent exhibit here at the Maritime Museum of the Atlantic. Continuing on the right-hand side, guys, so we'll see this big gray building here kind of at the front of the boat. We're not quite past it yet, but we're getting close. That's Nova Scotian Crystal. Now, Nova Scotian Crystal is the only crystal emporium in Canada that features a mouth-blown, hand-spun crystal depot. So if you take a spin by after the tour, guys, you will notice they have large warehouse doors on the side. You can poke your head in, watch those men and women blow and twist their work. It's actually pretty interesting. They start with basically a hard piece of glass. They jam it onto the end of a stick. They stick it in the oven, heat it up till it's legit red hot, and then they sit there and they blow it, they twist it, they spin it to form the creation that they want. It's a very, very interesting process. We're cruising through some of our historical properties now, guys. These feature 7 of the 10 oldest buildings here in Halifax. Now I'm going to ask you folks to do some light reading over here on the right-hand side, guys. You're going to notice the word carved in right here, eyesight into that building. That is the word bank. Now, why is bank carved into that building there? That's because that is the home of Canada's oldest bank, Collins Bank, which was founded by Enos Collins all the way back in the early 1800s. Now, Mr. Collins was actually a privateer, which is a fancy name for pirate, so he was paid on behalf of the Commonwealth to sail the 7 seas into pillage and to plunder for his own personal profit. Now, upon his passing, Mr. Collins was actually valued as one of the richest men in Canada with a fortune of well over $21 million, which even today is no small chunk of change. Now, upon his passing and division of his wealth, one of his heirs actually went on to start his own bank, which still exists today, or as some of you might know it as Civic. Now, back in the 1980s as well, we attempted to move Mr. Collins' bank actually out of that building. It took us roughly 26 of dynamite drilled into the building itself in order to blow its vault out of place. That's because it was sealed shut with a very, very large cannonball and granite bricks that were pressed directly into the wall. Now, guys, in case none of you were paying attention to me, shame on you. You were paying attention to our captain here. You may have noticed he slapped on his headphones. Now, despite my repeated request to put on the latest Miley Cyrus album, he's actually getting ready to talk to Halifax traffic, making sure that we have permission here to enter the water. Now, guys, we're sitting at a higher tide, but I will warn you, it might